Good afternoon, folks. It's time for another episode of Notes from the Route. My name is Jared Forte, and this is the show where I kind of go out in public and share some of the ideas behind things that I'm writing right now, ideas that I'm thinking about and working through, as a way to kind of open the conversation up and have an interaction with other people who might be interested in some of the same ideas. Hopefully you can get some value out of it, and I know I certainly can receive value for any feedback that you have on what we cover. Today's episode is going to be how making things changes you. How making things changes you. Now, when you look back, when I look back over my personal experience and my journey, I grew up in a time where there was a disconnect between the things that you made and or the work that you did and the outcome of that work. There was a level of separation. Now, if you go back just from a historical context, you look at agricultural period where that was the dominant part of the economy. There was a connection between your labor and the natural process of bringing something from seed to harvest and seeing the fruit of your labor. My experience in the agricultural world was a little bit different. When I grew up, the work that I did on the farm was in tobacco fields, and I was able to take part in every step of the process of growing and cultivating these plants that would eventually turn into chewing tobacco and cigars or what have you. And even though I was there from the beginning, from the seedling stage all the way to the point where they were wrapped in these burlap big burlap bags and hauled off to the warehouse to be auctioned, I still never had any real connection to that product. I mean, I wasn't able to use it as it was. I didn't see the final thing. It was just one step in a long process of making something. So every part of that labor, it was difficult at times, and I enjoyed it at times, but there was no real connection between, the product and my labor. As I got older, I had an opportunity to work in a factory setting. So this is sort of the industrial model, which created so much prosperity in the 20th century. People were able to go and work and make things on a massive scale to fill our homes with all the conveniences and things that we enjoy that make up modern life. And that was the industrial age, and that was the way that people thought about arranging their lives, being in some part of that process. You go up, you find you a job making something in a factory or managing people making something in the factory, and you could sustain yourself with that, and you were involved in that work, and it was a very good thing from a financial standpoint. But there was still several layers of abstraction, let's say, between the work that you do and the product of that work. If you're working on a production line, you can get involved in your process. You can get involved in the mechanics of performing your task, and that can be it can be rewarding in that you can measure your output. There's a game-like element of it. You can measure your output. You can see your progress against other people. So there's lots of things that you can do in that environment that can make it intrinsically rewarding. But there is still a separation between the work that you're doing with your hands or even with your mind and the value that is eventually received for that work in the marketplace. So no matter how fun it might be, if you're the type of person that works with your hands and you can enjoy that process of connecting with people that way, in that environment, the competition, trying to make your numbers, it can all be, a fun process. Honestly, I'm not down at doubting that. I've had some of my most enjoyable work experiences have been in environments like that, in production type environments where you're making something. But there is, on one part of it is, there is something in it that loses the humanity of it. Like the end product doesn't feel like the work of hands because you're using all these mechanized process. So there's something lost in the product, in the humanity, and there's something lost in yourself where you're not really fulfilling your full creative potential. And also, these types of situations, these types of work situations are scarce now. It's hard to sustain yourself in that type of labor. So making things in that way is sort of a product and almost like a relic of the 20th century, something that we've somewhat moved beyond or the direction of the economy, at least in the Western world, is away from that type of work. Now, if you go back pre-industrial, then, if you think, I worked on a big farm. The tobacco fields that I worked in was like a 5-acre field. And as a 9 and 10-year-old boy, you look out over a 5-acre field, it's pretty daunting. It seems huge. It seemed like a really big operation that was going on. In reality, it was a relatively small farm. Now the farms are even bigger and they're mechanized, and people don't do the type of work that I did when I was growing up. The machines do it. But if you go back even before that, when the farms were not even really farms, they were gardens, and people sustained themselves in a way by they grew things for themselves, and they grew extra to share with others. They made things in their shop, whatever their craft was, they made things for themselves, and they made enough to share with others. And that was the pre-industrial economy. It was artisan craft type work. Now, the interesting thing is in the post-industrial economy, which is how you can sort of think about where we are now in the age where a large portion of the world is creating a livelihood outside of a mass product or mass communication or mass broadcast area, where they're working in smaller teams, providing services for people, providing or creating products for people. In this area, the post-industrial area is very similar to the pre-industrial area. We have in our history this ethic of being able to make things and create things for ourselves and make enough to share with a few other people who can connect with us. Now, when you look at the marketplace in the old, in this area that I was talking before, in the pre-industrial era, you had the marketplace was where you took your extra to share, and it was a physical location, and you got the things that you need, and you sold the things that you had. Now, in the marketplace for ideas, the digital marketplace, that's the largest frontier of the post-industrial era. That's the biggest opportunity that's available for several reasons. For one, your products that you create, they scale infinitely, meaning you can make something and it can reach millions of people. It's a global marketplace. Anyone who has access to the internet can receive the product of the work that you do. In the marketplace for ideas is ideas that provide information, they provide inspiration, and they also provide entertainment. And entertainment is probably the biggest because people want to be entertained. They want to laugh and to cry and to be lifted up by something that is a diversion from their everyday life. So that huge digital marketplace is a great opportunity in a post-industrial economy. And the beautiful thing about it is, even though it scales infinitely and you have this big opportunity to connect with a large number of people, the truth of the matter is you can still invest the same type of personal and human touch in what you make as if you were sitting back in the 1800s crafting a piece of crafting a garment that you could take to the marketplace. You still have the full context of the work that you do because it's something that's coming from you. It's your creative endeavor. You have yourself invested in it, and you're taking it directly to the person who can use it. What you're making is not a part of some complex or convoluted process that you feel disconnected from. When you watch this video, you're seeing me, and you have the opportunity to connect with me. You can send me a message, and it will come to a human being, the same human being that's saying these words right now. The same is true for anything that you create. With the way the technology is available, if you make something, then you have the person who receives that gift, whether it's a product or an experience that you create, they can reach out and touch you and make a real human connection with you. And that is where the transformation takes place. The transformation that comes from making things, the way that it changes you, is when you can invest yourself into the thing that you create. When you put yourself into a product, into an experience, then that act of care and craft that you put into it, it changes you. It makes you a different type of person. You move away from being a consumer to being a producer. And when you are a producer, when you make something, it changes the way that you see the world. Now, even beyond the digital space, technology is emerging that allow you to create physical objects and share physical objects with a small group of people that could be located anywhere in the world. But that's when you're talking about 3D printing and artisanal crafts that you can make and share with the world through sites like Etsy, all those types of things are available as well. But the biggest thing is just the fact that it's worthwhile to be willing to let go of the idea that is sort of carrying over from the industrial era, that your work is just this thing that you have to do to trade your labor for some sort of dollars. It can be something that is much more meaningful now. It can be something that has a greater impact on you as a person who works, because it gives you a sense of fulfillment when a person can experience a part of you in the things that you create, in the way that you invest your time in your life, what you're doing. Also, you have the opportunity to touch that other person on a deeper level. You know the difference in something that's made with care. You can feel the quality and like it's just like when you have a home cooked meal. You can tell the love and the care that goes into it. Now, with the technology that's available and with the relationships that you can build, and the tools that are at your disposal, whether it be using social media platforms to build an audience, or using technology to create digital art, to create documentaries or films that you can make, and you can do things now at a much lower cost than before. Whatever it is that you want to make, if you want to create a special experience in a service that you offer in your business, all those things are available. All those things have the power to transform you in the way that you feel about the work that you do and the way that you invest in your life. And they also have the opportunity to touch the person who receives these gifts, that customer, that viewer, that bystander who just happens to be a witness to what you're doing. When you have that level of connection and heart in what you're doing, you can change them. So the impact is huge. You have all this power at your disposal. So I'm hoping that if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an artist, I hope that you really appreciate the depth of the significance of the opportunity that's in front of you. That's been Notes for the Route for today. This is Jared Forte. I really appreciate you taking the time to check me out. You can follow me on Twitter at thisjared. Go to jaredforte.com to read some of the stuff that I'm writing. And come back. I'll see you tomorrow, same time. Have a great day.